spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how's it going?
Well, Lynn, I'm here. I'm glad our contract dispute got worked out with our agents, and we're all back here. You know, we're both on the podcast.
We are
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Welcome. Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we are also authors of the books Cleaning the Kingdom, Volume 1 and 2. We're
Yes.
here to talk about Disneyland, and we have been doing that for 292 shows,
What? Oh my goodness.
give or take.
Yeah, we don't count many episodes.
No, or the first couple ones. But, this is number 292.
Wow.
And we want to welcome you. We have a great show tonight, and we're really excited about talking to our guest. And before we get to that, I want to mention a few things. We have a Patreon page, and you can go to Patreon and you can search The Sweet Spot, or go to our website, thesweetspot.com, and click on the Patreon link. And if you give $5 more a month, you get the bonus episode that we record once a month, and we release to people that give $5 or more on Patreon. And that money goes to help pay for all of our expenses that seem to keep going up and up. So we really do appreciate the people that have been doing that, and we'll never take that for granted. And so if you'd like to help us do that, you can do it that way. And if you don't want to do Patreon, we also have a way to do it through PayPal, and I believe there's a link on the website for that. Or you can just email thesweetspot@gmail.com, and I can help you with that. I can mail you the bonus episode that way too. Also, we have a YouTube channel that we haven't really... So what I do is I upload the audio versions of the podcast every week on there, and then we, if that's your preferred method of listening to the podcast, there's there's nothing really to see, but some people like to have it on their computer in that form, I guess. That's what I've heard. Also, I wanted to mention that I started something just this week, doing a mini episode, and I wasn't trying to exclude Ken from this, but I wanted to do something that was simple and easy.
But my contract needed to be renewed.
That's true, and your agent, we had some issues.
I was playing hardball.
Yeah. No, I wanted to do something that was easy. I could do just on my free time. At spur of the moment, I had a thought, and I wanted to talk about it. And I'm going to do that on the weeks that we don't have the main show, which this is the main show. And they will be called the Sweet Spot mini episodes. And we have episode 1 up now that you can listen to on the same feed as that you're listening to now on that. And so you will be getting some sort of Sweet Spot episode every week now. So I hope that is exciting to some people. These mini episodes are mini, so they're like 15 minutes or less. So hope you go over and check that out. Our guest tonight is someone that I found through his podcast, and he has much more than just that. His name is Mark Brickey, and Mark has a very unique way of describing, and such a great positive attitude about the park, Disneyland that we're talking about, and I really love listening to his podcast called Disneyland For Designers. And if you're looking for a new podcast out there, not a new one, but in addition to ours, of course, you go over and check his out for sure. And you're going to love hearing Mark on tonight's show. He also has a YouTube channel called Adventure in Design. And so check that out. Really looking forward to talking to Mark tonight. We're going to talk about Galaxy's Edge, talk about him and what he's doing there with his content. So we got a fun show coming up for you. But up next, we have the current event. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, what do you have for us?
Well, Lynn, Disneyland is still closed. Yes, let's speculate as to what might happen when it reopens. No, well, we do have some news. The Quinjet has landed at Avengers Campus at the Disneyland Resort, okay? And this is from laughingplace.com, where you can find the podcast now. They have this report that the Quinjet has landed. There's no word on if there's any cartridges for refills for the Quinjet. Oh wait, it's some sort of vehicle. Oh, okay, that makes. I was thinking they were talking about printers. Okay, Josh Damaro. You know, it's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, took to Instagram to share photos of a historic moment in the construction of Avengers Campus, a new Marvel-themed land coming to Disney California Adventure Park. He shows the Quinjet, a fabled shield ship, touching down on the roof of one of the land's buildings. That's kind of dangerous. Craft landing on the top of a building. I wonder if they planned for that. Joining tomorrow in the photos is Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, Disneyland Resort president Ken Podok, and several Imagineers. So there you go. The Quinjet has landed. I don't know if the Sex Jet has landed, or the Sep Jet, or the Ocjet, or the Non-Jet, but the Quinjet has landed. So, speaking of Marvel Land, Disneyland auditions Marvel superhero stunt performers for Avengers Campus. And this is one of those Orange County Register stories from Brady McDonald. And of course, you can find all of these in our current event show notes on the website, thesweepspot.com. Thesweepspot.com. You can click through and read all of it if you've got access. A pair of new Avengers Campus shows featuring Captain America and Black Panther. Rest in peace. Fighting a sword-wielding villain and General OK. Oh, see, here's where General OK. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Okoya. General Okoya. Now, I know there's a bunch of people who are screaming the right pronunciation at me right now, but I'm sorry. I'm just not a huge. I've never spent the time to get into Marvel all that much. Training young warriors are coming to the new Marvel-themed land after DCA reopens. The park is looking for professional stunt talent and union actors to perform in Marvel superhero live-action shows, according to the Disney Audition website. What do you think, Lynn? You think you got a chance?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to do it.
The new Disney casting call seeks stunt performers with athletic builds.
I can't do it then.
Who are skilled in... It'll be up to me then, Lynn.
Right.
It'll be up to me.
Right.
Who are skilled in theatrical hand-to-hand combat, sword and shield combat, martial arts staff handling, acrobatics, tumbling, and wall climbing to portray the Marvel superheroes. The Disney Audition website listed specific height ranges for each of the Marvel superheroes. Captain America is 5'11" to 6'3". I think I just barely missed that. Black Panther is 5'10" to 6'2". Hey, I could do that. I could do Black Panther, right?
Yeah, I think I fit in that part of it.
And General Okoye is 5'4" to 6 feet tall.
Oh, I could do that one.
There you go. We could, yes. Avengers Campus will host 4 superhero shows when the new Marvel-themed land opens. The Avengers Rooftop Stunt Show and Dora Milaje training sessions will be joined by a Spider-Man aerial acrobatics show and Doctor Strange Mystic Arts special effects show. The Disney Auditions website is accepting online submissions for the Marvel performer roles through September 6th. That's 2020. So if you're hearing this and you think you can do it, get on it. We also will have the laughingplace.com coverage of the very same story. And we will have a pronunciation guide for people like me. No, we won't have it, but we should. Here's some important news from the Register. Disneyland removes Zippity Doodah from playlist as part of Splash Mountain makeover. Yeah, it's an Oscar winning song. Disneyland has removed the Zippity Doodah song, and I hope you're bleeping it out, Lynn, because the name Zippity Doodah is offensive apparently. Disneyland has removed the Zippity Doodah song from the Downtown Disney background music loop and stripped any reference to Song of the South from the Splash Mountain website. I didn't realize there was an official Splash Mountain. Maybe they're talking about a page or something, but
probably the Disney website.
Splash Mountain will still feature more than 100 audio animatronic characters who will sit there in the dark and hardly move. Oh no! And a 5-story splashdown finale set to classic, quote-unquote, classic Disney ditties, including Zippity Doodah, according to the updated Disneyland website. You know what I think might actually happen? And by the way, Laughing Place is covering the same story. But I think they might turn off all the lights, or the ones that are still on anyway, remove all the music, and they're just gonna it's gonna be a log ride in the dark. Because they'll do that in preparation for transforming it, but then they'll just let the project go for cost cutting. So it'll just be a log ride with no music and darkness in the inside, So and they can take down all the signage too, because the signage is also offensive, I'm sure, somehow. So it could just be a log ride. Anyway, hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully they'll actually follow through. But Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld say California theme parks are ready to open. Yes. Executives from Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld said California theme parks were ready to roll during a theme park roundtable in Orlando on Wednesday, August 26th, led by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld officials used the Florida Roundtable as an opportunity to gently but firmly remind California Governor Gavin Newsom that their theme parks in Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego counties are ready to go after more than...
He doesn't seem to care.
Now, Lynn, don't get political.
I'm not. I'm just saying he doesn't seem to care if they're ready or not.
Oh, so. He cares about protecting everybody, apparently.
Okay.
After more than 5 months of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. No, after more than 5 months of coronavirus closures. Disneyland has been ready to roll since July, Disney World's Chief Operating Officer Jim McPhee said at the roundtable. Disneyland is awaiting guidance and opening ring protocols from Newsom and California state officials, McPhee said. So
eventually Disneyland was ready to open since July 2020, and it'll be 2021.
Maybe it'll be a Christmas present.
I hope so. I'm trying to be positive, but it's starting to get frustrating. But I kind of get it because they don't want to like rush right into it. But at the
have you
same time,
spoken about this anywhere, Lynn?
I kind of have.
The mini episode that came out.
Yeah. The mini episodes that I started doing. I kind of talk a little bit about this. I will say real quick though that I'm all for being careful because you don't want. Some people are more sensitive to this than others, or have health issues. But at the same time, I think we need to get things rolling a little bit quicker, just a little bit quicker. Because from conference, I don't know if you're going to talk about that. From today, it just seems like it's getting farther away instead of.
Well, just imagine your tram boarding group. You'll have to have a tram boarding group with the app, and then if you even get the tram boarding group, you're not going to be able to do anything else. But
or you get a boarding group for your dinner, but darn, I couldn't get it at 5:00. I got it at 10:30.
So Laughing Place also covered that story, but they add on Sunday, Orange County, California, was removed from the state's watch list for extensive monitoring due to an increase in coronavirus cases. According to the City of Anaheim's website, there are no immediate changes for its business reopening plan. Anaheim is in stage 3 of reopening, and that stage excludes theme parks, not just Disneyland. So all those other Anaheim theme parks, they can't open either. Theme parks can open in stage 4, which the city only states will be ready for in the coming months. So coming months, that's, that could be any time. And recently,
but
as we record, Laughing Place does have a story. What California's new color-coded county risk tier system means for colorblind people. No, for the reopening of Disneyland. So that's why, and they break it all down for you. They tell you what purple means and what orange means and what yellow means and all of that. So you can try to decipher when, if ever, Disneyland will be reopened.
I need to learn trigonometry to figure
it's like a calculus thing.
Wow.
So, all right. Well, let's move on to something positive. LaughingPlace.com has a photo update from downtown Disney at the Disneyland Resort. So you can click through, and it says here, while Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure remain closed, the downtown Disney district at the Disneyland Resort is open and available to guests. The shopping, dining, and entertainment district is still bustling even without the parks operating. And our own Mike C. took a stroll through the area to check everything out. So you can go click through and see the pictures and see what it looks like if you're missing it. And Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen and La Brea Bakery and all of that great stuff. But, eventually the parks should reopen. They are reopened at Walt Disney World, and there's other places. So you know what that means. If you want to book a Disney getaway vacation, contact concierge.com. That's CONCIEARS.com. Concierge.com, kind of like mouse ears and like concierge. They're our magical vacation planners. All they focus on is Disney, so they can keep up to date on all the color coding and what the changes are and when you can make reservations, and they'll do heavy lifting for you. It's not going to add any extra cost to your vacation. So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Reduce your stress. Let somebody else do the heavy lifting. Contact concierge.com. Book with them for your next Disney getaway vacation. Tell them that the Sweep Spot sent you, and when you book with them, you'll get a special gift. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. Plan your next getaway vacation with concierge.com.
I will. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everyone. This is Eric Johnson with Concierge, and welcome to the D180. As always, while Ken and Lynn cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. Summer 2020 is almost finally over, and autumn is ready to cool us all off a little bit. In addition to the ongoing Epcot Food and Wine Festival, there's a lot of new fall merch to look for around the parks. Some old favorite popcorn buckets like Oogie Boogie return, but we will also see Jack Skellington and Madame Leota's sippers. The other parks get in on the fun as each has a different color cauldron to collect along with your popcorn. The Halloween hits keep coming. From September 15th through October 31st, guests at the Magic Kingdom can experience the fall magic again. Your favorite decorations are back even without the annual events of Mickey's Not So Scary Parties. One of the things we loved best about those autumn nights was that adults could get in on the fun with their kids and wear full costumes. It seems that Disney wanted its guests to have a little extra fun this year, and they're allowing all guests to wear their costumes to the Magic Kingdom during this time period. Make sure to work your face covering into the theme. In case you forgot, Disney is still hard at work on the new Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser experience. The new resort hotel experience sends guests on a trip to the stars where they can embark on a virtual cruise. If they keep up on their originally projected pace, the stationary cruise will start dropping guests off on the planet Batuu sometime in 2021. No word on how the cruise's cast members are going to explain why you can encounter a giant Jessie from Toy Story just outside the outpost at Galaxy's Edge. Just a personal note that I, Concierge Eric, am super stoked to see the new pylons installed in front of Spaceship Earth at Epcot. This throwback to the original fountain at Epcot Center is a giant step toward the beautification of the entrance to my favorite park. Sadly, along with all the fun, Disney World is reducing its hours at all parks starting September 8th. If you have a trip planned already, make sure you take these hours into account. Making a trip across the Atlantic, we find that Disneyland Paris is also reducing the hours at both of its parks as well. Both Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney Studios Park will operate from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. on weekdays. Disneyland Paris will stay open an hour later on weekends. Shortly after Disneyland Paris started greeting guests again, it began work on a new solar power plant. Destined to open in 2023, this plant will rest over the parking structures and improve the amount of renewable energy used by the resort. Early booking rates are still available for many adventures in Europe and beyond, but you need to act soon. For those of you who listen to the show as soon as it hits, you're in luck, because you can still book trips with discounts up to $750 per person through August 31st. Seriously, act now. These premium guided tours rarely go on sale. Keep moving eastward into China, where Shanghai Disney Resort will celebrate autumn as well. Duffy the Bear and his pals are way more popular in China and Japan than in the States. So popular, in fact, that Shanghai will celebrate Duffy Month in September this year. Special resort packages let you stay in Duffy-themed rooms with special meal moments and park ticket deals. Of course, several new Duffy merch options will be available exclusively at the Shanghai Disney Resort. We'll have to skip over Tokyo's parks this time around, as we're out of time. That's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the Disney universe. If you'd like to learn more about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over and visit the Facebook pages and websites of both the Sweep Spot and us, their official travel partners, Concierge. We look forward to planning something special for you and your family. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
This may be your first time here, and it's mine too. This next song is banned in...
So, Mark, I wanted to ask you, what's your Disneyland story? Like, when was your first time you went to Disneyland, and what was your first impressions of it?
So my first visit to Disneyland proper, Walt's original Magic Kingdom, was as an adult. And I have to say, it's pretty amazing to get to see it as an adult after you're already a professional illustrator, a professional designer, because I got to go in both with new eyes and trained eyes. And I immediately loved it a million times more than what I thought. And I went there on a curiosity of how good could Disneyland be, because it's tiny. It's inside of Anaheim, which is a hustling, bustling metropolitan area, thanks to Disneyland. And I went and I absolutely loved it. But what I loved even more was when I started researching the history of it. Because when you're there, you can just kind of feel the magic, and it feels historic. It feels one part fantasy, but also one part historic. And so as I pulled on that string and I started pulling that thread, I realized the more that I would love Disneyland, the more that it would love me back. And so it's pretty much become a full-time hobby of mine for the last 9 years. And we'll say that it played a small part in inspiring the moving to Southern California. And I've been a AP holder now for 7 years, somebody who goes to the park once a week for 7 years when it's open, asterisk. And it's just one of those things that the more that you research, there's always a great story to find. So I absolutely love it. And I refer to myself as a student of Disneyland, and I hope one day to be official citizen of Disneyland. Still no button.
Oh, man. Well, that's great. That's the one thing I admire when I first started listening to your show and getting to know you through that, was that you went, everyone we usually talk to either grew up going to Disneyland or Walt Disney World, and they, I don't know, it was really unique to hear your perspective on it. I don't know. I just really enjoy that, and I like the way you explain it.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate it, and I see it as an art piece. And I did go to World as a very young child, and then twice as a young adult. I've never been to World as a super fan, and I plan on doing that when I was waiting for the 50th of World and the redo of Epcot, because I've never been to Epcot. I've never been to Animal. I've never been to Hollywood Studios. I have ironically been to Disneyland Paris, but really my love is Disneyland. And I know that my true love is Disneyland, and I love it because of its problem solving. It's such a small parcel of land that it's difficult to make Disneyland's magic, and that difficulty is where my passion lies.
Well, let me ask you this. This is kind of a question I always wonder. Like, why do you think adults, like maybe not just yourself, but in general, adults like us, I'm 48, and what attracts adults to Disneyland? Because I know that it's the stereotype thing to say, like, oh, Disneyland's for kids, and I hate that. But why do you think these super fans, where do they come from, and why? What attracts them?
So my working theory is this. Last year, I was fortunate enough to kind of get into a good group of guys. Last year was my strongest Disneyland year ever. This year, ironically, has been my worst Disneyland year ever. But I found myself hanging out with a group of guys. One was an architect that works for the park. One was a lifelong Club 33 member. The other two are visual artists over for the Wonderground Gallery. I'm a former artist for the Wonderground Gallery. A couple other guys that are captains of industry. One's a VP of In-N-Out. The other one's the guy that invented Tinder. Like, I'm just hanging out with this group of guys. And I'm trying to figure out, why do these high-functioning adult men love this park so much? Why do we go there and our wives all know that you're going to go with your Disneyland friends? Yeah, I'm going to go with the guys. We're going to take a lap. And I pretty much summarize it as, there's something that attracts guys to train sets, right? There's the construction of it. It kind of feels like a toy. So there's a nostalgia of being a kid and pushing the dump truck out in the backyard. But there's also a complication of, once you build your train set, then you pour all your hours in building the village around it and the landscaping around it. So I think that there's some sort of like fundamental architecture, sense of building, sense of identity, like a puzzle, right? And I think that the high-functioning professional male brain, and I'm sure women enjoy it at their own level, but I can only speak as myself. I think that there's this, it's a puzzle, right? And you go there and it's like, you know, you and I tomorrow, we might spend our Saturday working in our yard, but we'll never get a Disneyland perfect. We might have to put a new door on the front of the house. We'll never get a Disneyland perfect. So I think that there's this perfection and construction and artistry that just sucks people in, that when you go there, it's the best version of everything. It's the best that you could ever aspire to do. And I think that there's some sort of comfort in that. And I think it helps the high functioning brain feel at ease, because for once, you're not in an area where everybody's asking you questions or everybody's demanding your attention. You're in an area where it demands your attention. So there's a sense of calm that comes over me once I go through the right tunnel. Always go through the right tunnel.
I agree.
Thank you.
I always think that Disneyland is structured, and there's structure and there's order, but it's disguised. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, there's a chaos to Disneyland that I feed off of. I love the orchestra that is Disneyland when it's buzzing and there's a parade crowd and the monorail's going by. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
But there is a orderness to it, to where the chaos is controlled. It does make sense. And I'm really looking forward to the park reopening, because my happiest day of the summer was the day that I spent at the cast member preview of Downtown Disney, because it's the first time this entire last 6 months that I was out in public where everybody was living by the same laws. Everybody was agreeing on the same version of reality. So I'm really looking forward to the park to reopen, because I think even in these chaotic times, they will know how to control the chaos in a way where I feel safe and part of a community.
And that's the thing with Disneyland that I found. I was working at the park, I wasn't there when 9/11 happened, but I worked the day after that. And it was a place of secure, although the world seemed wild and crazy at the time and unsure, it seemed like, and that was what our managers told us. They said, put a smile on. I know it might be tough, but everyone comes here to escape the real world, and we're going to give them, happiness and away from what's going on in the world if we can do it. And that was kind of the goal. And I think that with what's going on in our world right now, there's a couple things going on right now, not just COVID, but I think that Disneyland will provide that when it does open.
Yeah, I think that it will absolutely do that. And I think that the great thing about Disneyland is kind of the great thing about Christmas, right? For Christmas, most of us, even if you're not a Christian, we just agree that we're going to try to be our best self, and we're going to decorate our homes, and we're going to buy gifts, and we're going to take time off to be with our family, whether it's related to religion or just the actual tradition of it. And I think that Disneyland is a lot like Christmas, and we all agree that we're going to go there and be our best self, our best behavior. We're going to have our best day. You only go there with people that you love and that you want to spend time with. So I think that it's also that shared bond that we're all there to do the Disney day. And I think that gets people in a proper mindset. And this is the moment where I would like to tell you, thank you for your service. I always like to say that to cast members. Thank you for your service, for serving the mouse. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's, it was my pleasure.
I always love saying that to cast members, because I understand how important you are to the magic trick, right? And I say this a lot, Disney builds the park, but the people build the magic, and the cast members are so instrumental to the magic, to the experience. And I always try to have a lot of patience, always try to work with cast members and not against them, because I understand the importance of everybody there, whether they're sweeping garbage or, getting people on the next ride. Like it really runs on people, and I really appreciate that.
It's live theater,
It is. It really is.
Well, I wanted to focus mainly tonight on Galaxy's Edge. I understand that you love it. I love it. Yeah, I think it's a great area. But I wanted to talk about, some of the things that it offers. I know that there's probably a lot of our listeners still haven't had a chance to go. So just kind of wanted to describe, the atmosphere, the feeling you get when you're there, some of the best food you enjoy or don't like, or any of that.
Well, I will say this to people. Galaxy's Edge is a rewriting of the Disneyland history. Not only is it 14 acres, so it's the biggest expansion ever in the history of Disneyland proper, but it's a reimagining of what a land can mean. And for a lot of people that were opposed to Star Wars being in Disneyland, good news. they thought about your opposition, and they made the land very separated from the rest of Disneyland. When I went there on opening weekend, I said, my God, there'd be an additional ticket or an additional bracelet. It's so cut off from the rest of the park.
Yeah.
And I really think that makes it successful in that my first day of going to Galaxy's Edge, visiting Batuu, it's ingrained in my mind like the first time that I walked through the streets of Paris. It's ingrained in my mind like when we landed in London and I saw London for the first time out the window of a cab. Like, it is so exotic and otherworldly that you really do feel a transformation of going someplace else. So it was interesting how it was the greatest thing ever. Mm-hmm. People got there. Oh my God, we're in here. And they held up the camera and they recorded their podcast and they took their pics. And then there was this really weird backlash that I have fought against for a year, because I just honestly think a lot of people, hot take, aren't bright enough to understand the bright suns. I think that it's very, very intellectual, and I pray that Disney doesn't dumb it down, but I think that's probably going to be inevitable because most people just don't understand it at an intellectual level, the way that they poured their heart and soul into this. Mm-hmm. So it was a real win for art and design, but I think it's going to, in the long term, be a loss for humanity.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense now, the way you said it.
Well, I would hope that ideally you do it in a way that somebody who has never been there before and is not really, they're not. I mean, maybe they've seen a Star Wars movie, but they're not like big fans of it. I mean, they're not like deliberately going to the theater to see it and stuff like that. They ideally you would do something that they can have fun with, and something all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you have somebody who's really, really deeply into it.
Right.
That they're enjoying their self at it too. If it works on both of those extremes, that's a really successful way to do it.
And I think that they were smart in that if they would have recreated Galaxy's Edge and made it a movie set, right? If they would have made it one of everybody's favorite destinations and they would have made it screen accurate, you would go there once, you would take your photo, and you would be done with it. But this is what I would like to convert over to hardcore Disneyland fans. Let's just throw Star Wars out the window.
Yeah.
This is an original land. It is, let's ignore Star Wars. Let's call it Spaceland. When you go in there, you're going into something that is completely different, completely unique, and it is up to you to set up your own adventure, to make your own memories. So if it would have been like walking into a movie, oh, I finally got to go to the movie I saw when I was 8, done, now I can go on. But this is Frontierland. It's not a frontier of any place in particular. It's the frontier land that Disney has at Disneyland. It's this version of New Orleans Square, which, by the way, I think New Orleans Square is a really heavy-handed influence on Galaxy's Edge. So ultimately, it was a very correct decision in making it feel unique to the parks. So these are experiences that we will have at Disneyland or Disney World, and we will always remember these as such. As when I show you guys the 3 hitchhiking ghosts, that takes you to Disneyland. It doesn't take you to Haunted House, Halloween. You know what I mean? Like, it's proprietary. And that was really, really smart to make these unique voyages, because now I have that memory of not, oh, I finally stepped into the movie that my mom took me to see at the drive-in when I was a kid. I stepped into Batuu, and I'll always remember that like stepping into Paris.
I think it has both of that. I mean, it both has nostalgia for those Star Wars fans, because you see the Millennium Falcon, you see people crying.
Oh, it's familiar.
Right.
Yeah. It's familiar, but it's new and it's fresh. And so therefore you can go in and feel like you're at home, but know that it's time to create new memories. I mean, Doc Ondor looks a lot like the action figure that I loved as a kid, Hammerhead.
Oh, yeah.
But he's not. No. He's Doc Ondor. And now I have a relationship with Doc Ondor, and I remember those memories.
See, I like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I mean, we were talking about people just remembering it from their childhood and everything. And yes, some people do get overwhelmed when they come in and they see the Falcon for the first time, and they literally do cry. I cried. They take a minute and they cry.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just amazing. It was criminally underrepresented in theme parks.
Yeah.
Until this happened. I mean, yes, there was Star Tours, and
Yes. Not even
whatever
close.
else. But, but it was underrepresented, and that's because Lucas was his own entity,
Right.
for all that time until he decided, okay, I'm going to sell, if I'm going to, I better sell it to somebody, and it might as well be Disney. And then Disney, of course, is like, well, heck, we're going to do what we can to, we're going to start implementing this. I mean, I do know for a fact that Lucas had toyed with the idea of doing theme park stuff before. I mean, separate from Disney, he had come up with ideas of opening a park somewhere or something. But it's just amazing that it went all that time before you had. I mean, like I said, Star Tours was great,
Right.
But until you had this larger physical manifestation of one of the most iconic franchise is not really the right word, but the iconic movie series. I mean, it's one of just the most iconic in history.
Yeah, and it really came in at a right time, right? Like at the end of the 70s is sort of the pinnacle of consumerism, and so here comes this forward-thinking product, and I think the thing that made everybody love Star Wars, and this is the most brilliant thing that Lucas did, is that when New Hope starts, you're so blindsided by what's going on that Star Wars always felt like a whole lot happened before you got there and a whole lot was going to happen after you left. And so many movies are singular in their vision. So from the beginning, it was already a universe. It was already a world that you could interpret and wonder like, man, what happened? And so I think everybody would agree right now that Iger maybe rip Lucas off for $4 billion, right? Like it seems like it's worth so much more at this moment for what they've been able to do with it. So hopefully they'll be able to steer the new movies in the right direction and kind of find the success that Marvel has found.
I think that the area, I always thought, when the first time I went there, Millennium Falcon was the only attraction, and that was like that for you as well. But when Rise of Resistance opened, it sort of like completed the puzzle that I saw the whole picture, because I didn't see it. Like I thought it was great, and I was impressed with all these different details and everything that you were talking about earlier. But when Rise of Resistance opened, it sort of just it came together, and there was something missing, and then that opened, and it kind of completed the area.
It really did in a really interesting way. When Rise opened, Disney did everybody a solid. They give you this boarding pass on your phone. So no longer would you have to wait in line for 16 hours. And we were all ready to do it. But they gave us this boarding pass, which smart. You can go live your life, your Disney life. You can go spend money. You can go eat. You can go make memories. And then boom, your phone tells you, hey, dummy, it's your turn. And it created such a energy and an excitement that people just wanted to hang out in front of it. And I remember being there on January 17th when it opened to the public, and we didn't have to be standing in front of Rise to get our boarding pass, but we wanted to be there as a community. And I have to tell you, the amount of stress that I had trying to get that first boarding pass, there's not many times I've been that miserable inside of Disneyland, but you guys are old enough to remember Worldwide of Sports. It was the fear I was going to have the agony of defeat, but then I got the thrill of victory when it landed in our phone. And my God, that was such a glorious moment. I'm so lucky that I was filming my reaction, because I've looked at it a couple of times post-COVID. I'm like, I want to feel that happy again.
It really was a moment where we didn't go that weekend, but my son and I went in February, and finally getting that and verifying and showing him, he was 12 at the time, and we shared that moment, and we were cheering and giving each other high fives. And,
that process was pretty crazy, and all these people are crowded around on Main Street, and they're all huddling around their phones.
Playing
everything goes silent. Everything goes silent, and then all of a sudden, different groups are yelling. Cheers are rising up from. It was just like so bizarre to see that. It's unlike anything I've seen there before. And you're talking about Wide World of Sports. I mean, you could have Howard Gosell narrating this. Ladies and gentlemen, these people have fast fingers.
But you mentioned fast fingers. When you're trying to get your boarding group and you already hear other people celebrating, it puts a panic over you because you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to get one. I'll say this about Rise. As somebody who's, admittedly newer to the Disneyland fan world, I'd always wondered, man, I'll never know what it was like to put on your Sunday best, to go down to Disneyland because you wanted to see Walt's bird room, right? Like, what was it like to see the Tiki Room when it opened? Yeah. What was it like to see Pirates when it opened? Like, Disney just passed away. Like, what's this attraction going to be like? And Rise is such a game changer that it's our generation's moment to see a Tiki Room for the first time or to do Pirates for the first time. Like, it's a once in a generational shift in amusement entertainment. And I'm glad to have had one of those moments in my Disney fandom because it really kind of rewrote my expectations of what an attraction can be. And not that everything has to be at that level, but just when they swing for the fences, how far they can go.
Man, well said. That attraction, I mean, you can't compare it to the older attractions, like Pirates or Haunted Mansion. But in a way, it does compare in an evenly sense, I
let's
think.
Look at its DNA, right? It borrows from the Haunted Mansion in that there's a device that gets you from A to B. It borrows from Guardians of the Galaxy, which borrows from Star Tours or Indiana Jones, where there's a pre-show to kind of manage the crowd. And then when you're actually doing it, it goes back to Tower of Terror and the way that the ride vehicle can kind of be, diverse. And it's going to do one thing, and now it's going to do another thing, so it can go left, right, up, down. It borrows from a lot of the rides of the past. It just embraces all of today's technology. So it's standing on the shoulder of giants, but really using modern technology to take it to a whole other level. So what's cool about it, once again, it feels exciting and new, but yet has that familiarity, which is core Disney Imagineering.
I mean, what do you want to talk about next? We could talk about...
Let's do this, man. Let's talk about how when you're in Batuu, right? When you're standing in front of Doc's shop, and you have Ronto Roasters behind you, and you have the patio of Docking Bay 7 over to your left. I love how all of those thoroughfares come in and make a star. And, the hub in Disneyland is designed after, how most cities in Europe are, where this is the center of town and all the roads lead into it. And so with Batuu, sort of there's a couple of those little like stars where all the paths lead together. And I love that design because the backstory of the Black Spire Outpost is this is the one like settled community on this planet full of just sort of rejects and villains and people that just want to be away from everything else. So the idea that all paths kind of collide, whether you're at the top of that area or down at the bottom at the stairs. And shout out to Imagineering for grading the land, putting in stairs, putting in walkways, putting in hills, not keeping it flat makes it so adventurous. But when you're standing right there, my favorite detail in the land is I love Doc's shop, but right to the next of it, or right to the right of it, that's the actual Black Spire. There's that big, burnt up Black Spire, and it's not the tallest spire in Batuu, but it's the one that it has that black dead look to it. It has sort of an acid sheen to it, and it's hollowed out. And I love the idea that at some point locals or the ancients, that's the story that everybody forgets, that the ancients were there and they're the sort of the sacred ones that have all of their history over in the caves of Rise. But at some point that was a meeting spot, and then a business built up and a house built up and people built up, and then war happened and it fell apart, and now we're in this decaying area. But I love that instead of that Black Spire, there's a living tree, something that's growing inside of something that's dead, and that tree is called the Hope Tree. And to me, that is the most powerful story. And I've had a hard time with hope lately because we've slid into sort of a dark universe, which is America in 2020. And so I always love going by the Hope Tree because it reminded me of what is Star Wars about at its core. It's about understanding that there's something that's bigger than you and that you have to give yourself to that, or something that you don't want to happen can overtake you. And so I have really, really enjoyed just looking at the Hope Tree and just thinking about like, man, I know this is an amusement park and I know it's not real, but damn if it doesn't feel real standing in here and getting these goosebumps all the time.
Now I can't even remember the tree now, and I've been in there several times.
But isn't that the great part about these places, though, is that, a bud tells you a story, and then you take your son there, and you show it to your son, and be like, that's the Hope Tree, and then it lights off in his head like, oh, as a new hope. You're like, yeah, buddy. Like the storytelling of Disneyland is so important, and we're in a new land. Like it has really not that much history. It didn't even make it through its full first cycle of a year before we were robbed of being able to go there. But they were smart and they built a land with an artificial history. And so if you're an old time Disney fan, you're like, I don't care about Star Wars, I don't want to see it. I'll argue you this. You love New Orleans Square. And that was an extension once too. That was a bit out of Disneyland once. And what Walt did, which was so important, is they created the French Quarter, and they created all these corridors and all these turns and all these pockets. So you can go in there, you can get lost. Batu's the exact same way. It's designed with the same sort of idea of there's corners, there's nooks, there's a road that goes this way, a road that goes that way. All of those bends in the roads, not only do they create perfect sight lines because now you can't see out, you're submerged in it, but they create a sense of adventure because you don't know what is around the next corner or the next pocket. So I would tell somebody who's maybe not interested, think about New Orleans Square, what you love about New Orleans Square, which was actually inspired by Adventureland. And this is sort of the third telling of that story. It feels lived in. It feels like it has a history. It feels like people are living there right now. Just if you walk through it and just kind of really soak in the storytelling, it would be hard not just to enjoy it from that perspective. Now, if you say, there's no rides here for kids, I'm not going to argue you. You've got a good point. But I also live by the catchphrase, kids ruin Disneyland, so I'm on a different side of the fence. Yeah. That's a hot take. That's a hot take. I understand.
Well, yeah, some would argue. Yeah, that's funny. But I like the idea that I've been there about 8 times. I live out of state, so I go maybe 3 or 4 times a year. But I've been there about 8 times, and I like the idea that I still feel not lost, but I still not, like you said, what's around the corner. Like I love that feeling, and I don't know if it's because I worked at Disneyland for so long that I know every crack in the road practically, staring down at the ground, sweeping for hours. But that's why I like DCA too, is because maybe it's just it's not as unfamiliar. It's not as familiar.
Yeah, it was fun to have some new Disneyland to discover. It was also really fun to finally be able to do a complete outer lap, right? Because you used to have to go into Critter Country and do that real weird like little turnarounds and then backtrack what you had just walked over in the last 2 seconds. So now you can actually do a lap of Disneyland, which is really, really fun.
And I love that walkway in front of Hungry Bear Restaurant as you're entering in. That little pathway, I just love that. I don't know why.
In my estimation, that's the proper entry point into Batu, is going the Hungry Bear or the Critter Country entrance, because the story develops in front of you. And once again, the genius of Galaxy's Edge is this. It's a 3-act story, just like every great movie is 3 acts and all the trilogies are 3-act. You come in, it's a slow build. You're in the resistance area. That's, the good guys, depending on how what your relationship is with the Force. No judgment here. And then you get to the middle area where the shops, those are sort of the innocent people. Those are the civilians. That's sort of the middle ground. And that's Act 2. And then when we get over to the far side, where the resistance has come in and set up camp, or I'm sorry, the First Order's come in and set up camp, that's Act 3. So you really have this land that is big enough to put a story inside of it. And it's really fun because because you don't see stormtroopers over in the Critter Countryside, and you don't really ever see Rey over in the First Order side. Like, they kind of really keep everybody in their pockets, but that middle area, that's where it gets fun when they sort of cross over.
Yeah.
So I really just love that storytelling. But other than the blue and green milk being horrible, I don't have that much bad things to say about it.
So what you like about it? It's just you just don't like the taste, or
It's criminal. It's criminal.
Yeah.
Somebody
it's too
took
expensive.
a big check from the Disney Corporation and said, "Don't worry, I'll make you your next Dole Whip." And they handed them back trash in a plastic cup. And it's just embarrassing how bad it is. And I will always be a cheerleader for the park, but I will always be an advocate on ban the blue milk.
See, I like it.
Are you kidding me?
I do. I like it.
Interview's over. I'm out of here, guys. You guys have a great weekend.
No, I do. I like it. I bought the big souvenir cup that you wrap around your neck, and
Oh man, you're a hardcore. So I found it to be kind of tasteless, and the taste I was getting wasn't very strong. Like, I don't feel like that's a signature Disneyland item. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to get back in and get a milk. And I've tried it 3 times because I just didn't want to give up on it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what is the best little treat inside of Galaxy's Edge, and it's a discoverable thing, which makes me love it even more, is if you go into Docking Bay 7, you can get it a la carte. You don't have to buy a meal to get it. There is a blueberry cornbread muffin. Woo! That's my treat.
I've never had it, but I'm going to take your advice.
I love that thing. I could rip that all day long, as well as Hoth chocolate.
Hoth chocolate?
Yeah, that's their hot chocolate. It's Star Wars themed. It's purple.
Yeah.
Hoth chocolate's good.
I've never eaten in was it Docking Bay 7? I've never eaten in there, but I've had a Ronto wrap, and I love that. I love it.
Yeah, I can never figure out if I like the breakfast Ronto better than the evening Ronto wrap, but that's a really surprise restaurant how good those are. Because on paper, it's like, oh, that kind of sounds like a bus tub. Like, those things don't fit together. But it's really good. And I always lovingly joke and refer to that place as the world's most expensive hot dog stand. Because they put a lot of money into selling those hot dogs. Yeah. But Docking Bay 7 is a really, really nice restaurant. Like, the food in there is good. It's, they had to dumb it down and change the names, and they had to get rid of the nice silverware because everybody was stealing it. They got rid of the metal trays. So it's already kind of gone away from how it was on opening weekend. But I really think that the food in there it's good, and it's it's our food, obviously, but the combinations and the way they put it together does feel otherworldly. So I got nothing but love for Docking Bay 7, and that patio is such a great place to sit.
Yeah, I'd like to try a meal there if I can sometime, but we'll see. I haven't had the breakfast Ronto wrap. You were mentioning how good that is.
It's really good, and they also have a drink there that I would recommend. It's the Tatooine Sunset, I believe is what's called. It's it's like a couple of different fruit punches mixed together, but it's really, really good. Definitely high sugar intake, but it's pretty good.
Oh, I can take it. Yeah.
But yeah, I really love that area though, where they have Sax Kettle, and they also have the Ronto roasters there. I love that building is shaped like a elbow macaroni, right? Because when you go into one tunnel, you can never see out to the other end. And even though it's not a big building, just putting that little gentle bend in there, just whichever way you enter it just gives you an infinity landscape, so that all that you see are those shops and that bazaar, so that you feel like it's going to be such a big experience, even though there's not really, a ton in there. You can walk through it in 5 minutes if you're at a brisk pace. But those little bend in the roads, that just sets up these picturesque moments where, for that moment, everything that you see in your personal infinity is all this different world. And I love being submerged in the magic like that.
I even love the restrooms there.
I heard that there was a big debate on if we theme the restrooms like this, are people going to think that these are dirty and grimy restrooms? Like, are people going to get that this is an artistic thing and not necessarily like a busted up old restroom. So cheers to them for
Right.
going for it.
Yeah, I love it. So just the theming itself, I like the shops because I like that they're small
Yeah.
and quaint, because that's the way it would be if you were in a small village area like that. You wouldn't want like a shop as big as the
No,
Emporium.
it would not
in
make
there.
sense at all. And you know, with Doc Ondor, the Den of Antiquities, they did a really great job of making something that sits between show and experience, show and attraction. And there's Baby Sarlacc in there. There's a couple of other like living models. There's Doc. There's a full-on animatronic in a shop. But then once you look past that beautiful chandelier that they put in there, and I never thought that I'd go to Galaxy's Edge and be like, but hey, did you guys see the light fixtures? I mean, the light fixtures are amazing. But when you go into that shop for the first time and your eyes look up, you go, oh, whoa, this is subtly a Star Wars museum. And the more you look around in that room, the more you just find it. And I immediately spotted, I'm like, whoa, that's the Mandalorian helmet. Can't wait to see if that's any good. Newsflash, it was really good.
Yeah.
So I love that level of storytelling is in that shop. That to me, it's hard to beat that store's vibe out of any other store at the resort.
Have you had a chance to do Savi's workshop?
I have. I didn't personally.
We did too.
I didn't personally build a lightsaber because I'm like, what am I going to do with that after I leave Galaxy's Edge? Like, what am I literally going to do with that thing? But a friend of mine who's a really phenomenal illustrator and artist, he came out for DCon, which is Designer Con that happens in Anaheim, and he said, hey, can I get one of your world famous Disneyland tours? And I said, absolutely, I'd love to go there with you, Daniel. And he wanted to build a saber, so he booked it ahead of time. And I was really excited to get to stand next to somebody and watch them do it and get to see that show. And,
It's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
it really is. And I can only
Yeah.
imagine what that must feel like for a 10-year-old kid, That's where I really got the goosebumps of just thinking about loving Star Wars and then being in that environment and seeing that show. Like, that is so amazing. And, there's a lot of people that say, well, all you could do at Galaxy's Edge is spend money. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've been there plenty of times and had a great time and didn't spend a nickel. So I am the beholder, my friend.
No, these are just the added experiences, that just mentioning that, seeing my son do it, I was recording it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do something.
But just watching him experience that whole thing, and they make it so real, like you actually, feel like, there's a little bit of pressure, It's really, really fun.
Well, it's also a lot of decision making, like everything in that tray looks good, but you're on Disneyland time, right? You're at DLT. So you can't, when life is like one pace. And then when it's your time to get your photo with Mickey Mouse, all of a sudden you're like, I'm in this weird time warp where I want a photo with Mickey, but there's other people and Mickey's busy. And you feel that same DLT pressure when you're building your saber, right? Like, oh my God, which pieces I don't have all day.
So what happened with us was we had a reservation for Rise of Resistance at almost, well, okay, so they were running behind on Rise, so it crossed our reservation we had for Savi's workshop, and I was stressing out like crazy because we got into the room where Ray is, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, we have like 10 minutes to get over there, and they'll charge you if you're late, and you don't get to do it. And I'm freaking out, and I finally go up to a cast member as you exit the room with Ray there, and I told him the situation, and he said, "Oh, come with me." I'm like, "All right." So I tell my wife and my son, let's go. And he took us up to the front and he scanned my phone and said, when you guys are done over there, just come back right here and we'll let you back in right where you left off.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, wow. It was so cool. So I love to get, a compliment for him, because I thought that was awesome. I don't know if they do that all the time.
There's nothing I love more than on my way out of Disneyland, going to City Hall and, giving a compliment to somebody that went above and beyond. And, we're talking about Batu today. I remember probably, it was maybe a couple of weeks after Rise had opened, and I was leaving one night, And I saw that there wasn't any sort of a line for City Hall. So I went up there on the steps and waited my turn. And they go, what can we do for you? And I go, I'd like to talk to somebody about Rise of the Resistance. And everybody in the plaid vest took like a big exhale. You know, they thought I was going to give them all kinds of grief. And I just said, look, I really want to tell you guys, I think you've done a phenomenal job with managing people's expectations and letting people down. And I know a lot of people are angry and mad that they can't get in, but the app system's amazing. And I've seen all of you all out there offering customer support. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate it. I love it. And I think that it was done about as good as anybody could do it. And they were just all breathed and exhale like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But, you know, they were getting so beat up for a couple of weeks on everybody that went there that didn't get what they wanted. And, you know, dreams do come true at Disneyland, but you also have to manage your own expectations.
I wanted to talk about, I mean, we've talked about, you know, what you see. We've talked about some of the attractions, the food, but the sounds, you know, they had an option to, I mean, they could have thrown, you know, John Williams soundtracks in there that everyone knows and is familiar with, but I'm glad they didn't because I love the sounds that they have there. Yeah,
so they realized that it didn't have the kinetic energy that Tomorrowland has, right? Like, my opinion on Tomorrowland is let's bulldoze it tomorrow and make a new land. That's what I think of when I think of Tomorrowland, because it's just so tattered and torn and nothing matches anything else. And you know, it's just at a bad point of evolution of 65 years of putting a Band-Aid on a problem, putting a Band-Aid on a problem. But what Tomorrowland does have, the Galaxy's Edge doesn't, is that beautiful layering of the subs with, you know, the monorail cruising over the top of it and the sounds of Matterhorn over there. Like, you know, that layering is so nice. And they knew that they were in a pickle, that Galaxy's Edge, there's 3 tunnels to go there. It's completely on the other side of the railroad. It's isolated by the rest of the park. So to add in that layering and to make it feel real, they opted for doing a visual soundscape. And I think that if you think about it, it adds that part that's missing when you hear creatures in the trees, or you hear, you know, something flying over the spaceport, or you hear a radio when you're walking through the shop, or you hear the dad talking to his daughter above the restrooms, convincing her not to join the resistance. Like, I love all of that layering in there. And that really solved a big problem of making it feel like this is happening and something else. Because everywhere else you're at in Disneyland, other than maybe Toontown, there's this happening and the other thing. And if you just would have went in there and played the music, that's like that's Universal Studios, right? Whoa, we're gonna put you in your movie. That's not what Disneyland does. Disneyland's going to put you in your own unique adventure. So I think in many ways, the music would go against how real they tried to make it. I do have to say this, though. I do think that by the 5-year anniversary, they will play music in there and they'll abandon the soundscape. I think the pressure from people that don't get it will just build. I really think they're going to buckle.
I hope not. Yeah.
I hope so too. I mean, I really think that it's perfect the way it is. And it makes it different than everything else. And that's the one thing people don't like is different. Sure.
Because they could have went a direction, you know, they could have had everyone in there. They could have had Darth Vader and, you know, and they could have went that direction. And the one thing I think that they do need, and I don't know why they haven't done this, and maybe they will, is the Jedi Academy, with the kids and the, I mean,
I know
was really cool.
The Doctor Strange experiential show in Avengers Campus is going to kind of bring that same structure back into the resort. So I don't know if they knew that they were already doing something similar to that elsewhere and they didn't want to copy themselves. I also don't know if it was like, we don't really have a space to do that. The only space that it would make sense would be over in front of Kylo's ship. And you can't do Jedi training over there. I mean, if they did it in the Savvy's like scrapyard courtyard there, that would be way too tight, no good sight lines, and it would just, be flooded. So I just don't know that they really have sort of that little mini theater space that they would need to pull something like that off. But to your point, there is that level of entertainment that's missing. And, when I went through with my trained eye, I was able to spot all kinds of high stages that they put up everywhere. And I kept waiting for them to add shows to those stages. And they haven't yet. And I don't know if that's just like, a bookmark for the future, and don't give them everything all at once so that we have something new to show you in 2 years to get you to buy another ticket. And if so, well played. I in the art of business. But I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those stages come to life, because they're so well built into the park. And now when we live in a moment of, FOMO, and social media has fed into this golden renaissance of Disney and all the other theme parks. Also the decaying of the mall and the Amazon effect on shopping. There's a lot of reasons why we're in this golden age of theme parks. And I hope that COVID somehow doesn't squash that and end it. I hope it's just a pause, let everybody being back to profitable, and then let's get the wheels of progress moving again. But FOMO has fed into this golden renaissance that we're getting to live through. And by taking the shows and elevating them, you give everybody at once the opportunity to capture the perfect pick. And that is so important going with our society versus clogging up all the arteries because, whatever character is walking through Fantasyland. So I really look forward to those stages coming to life. And I do believe, and we've already seen this with Avengers Campus, that is the way of the future. Get the characters elevated, get them up off the ground, do pop-up randomized shows that makes the lands feel more lived in, give everybody perfect picks, and let the people keep on moving. Oh,
I do like the stormtroopers, how they walk up on the like the little catwalk things.
Do you know how the stormtroopers' uniforms work? 'Cause I had it explained to me and it blew my mind.
No, I always wondered, do they have pre-recorded answers or?
So this is how it works, and this is genius. They have to learn a whole hand language. They have like 3 different beds. I believe it's 3 different beds of conversations. So as they're walking up to you, you're an adult. They know that you can take the adult humor. So they use a gesture that puts them into, like, say, conversation level 1. So now that I'm in level 1, I know that when I move my hand this way or tap my finger that way, I know what I'm going to say to you. Now, your son walks up next to you. Let's say your son's a little bit older. Your son might not be able to handle that sort of adult behavior. So then they tap over into voice command level 2 from level 1. And now that same hand gesture says something that's more child friendly, something for a younger citizen of Disneyland. So it's all done through their hand commands, which is then activating the pre-recorded voice so that they always sound like stormtroopers. It's always the same voice. It's a unified experience. And Disney doesn't have to worry about them getting too far out and doing anything too crazy. Magic, right? Total magic.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. I'll have to watch them next time.
Yeah, I can't remember what gets them into the different levels, if that's on their belt or if it's on the top of their hand, but there is some sort of way where if you notice every time they talk, they are doing gestures. And those gestures are not only emphasizing what they're saying, but it's making say, move along, citizen. I've been watching you all day. Like they know these different ways that they do it. It's magic how that works.
That is cool. And I'm sure they'll use that in Marvel or Avengers Campus.
I feel bad for Avengers Campus because if Galaxy's Edge is that amazing, and the vloggers and bloggers and YouTubers and Instagrammers and influencers, if they were that negative to something that's amazing, what are their expectations versus reality going to be on a much smaller, a much more beta land? Like, I just feel already bad for Avengers Campus because I just see it getting roasted out of the gate. And I think that once again is unfair because I really look at Avengers Campus as this is a beta launch. We know that we're going to add more onto it. I pray that it goes all the way over to Hollywood Studios and takes over that atrocity. Because that's how rich the Marvel IP is. They could just go on and on with that. So To be determined. I really feel like people are going to trash
yeah.
that land hard. And to what I say to these people that decide to make YouTube a $30,000 a year job and they trash things, it's like, you're not helping art and creative. You're actually stunting it. You're making companies afraid to take chances. And it's really easy to make fun of something or to tear something down if you've never built anything. And so I always look at my love of the park as I'm an illustrator, I was a poster maker, I was a designer, I worked for the Wonderground Gallery. So I know what it means to be an artist and put yourself out there. So I always try to review and enjoy everything from that perspective. And I think that really is the difference in people, that their whole gig is just, I stand next to something awesome and I tell you that it's awesome. Until then, I tell you it's horrible so that I can get views from you all over again. So it's going to be strange days when that land opens.
And they have to appease to a wide variety of, you have your average Joe that goes to Disneyland once every 5 years, and with his family, and they might like Marvel, but they're not totally into it, or Star Wars, so they kind of have to. I mean, there's a fine line.
Yeah, it has to have something for the super fan, and it has to have something for the person that knows nothing about it. You can't dumb it down so much that grandma loves it. But you can't make it so tech that the guy that goes and sees every movie on opening night and has all the toys and all the games, that only they can enjoy it. Like, it has to be a crossroads. And I think that a lot of people love Disney and Disneyland so much, and it's so personal to them, that they get angry at anything that's not personally custom fit for their needs. I mean, there's plenty of things there that don't apply to me, but I'm glad it's there for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care too much for the princess meet and greets, but I know that there's some little girls that just absolutely love it.
It's not what I was told. I was told that that's where you rope drop, you go straight to the fantasy fair every time. That's what I was told.
Lynn goes right there. But you. I mean, think about, you could ride Rise of the Resistance and enjoy it, even if you're not. You're not. I mean, you're still amazed at what I've been transported into space. Oh my gosh, they want us to. We need to escape out of here. I mean, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you can still enjoy that. And it's like, 100%. This is fun. We're zipping through this. We're zipping through the spaceship and the physical sensations of it all and all of that. I mean, that's, you can still have fun with it even if you're not a fan.
And Ken, you make a great point. People get stuck on the IP, right? They get stuck on, it's Star Wars and I don't like Star Wars. Well, let me put you through a little bit of a secret here. Pirates are an IP. A pirate is an intellectual property that you understand that if you go on this ride, you are now a pirate. What do pirates do? They steal, they rob, they fight, they drink, they're horrible people. Like, Disney always used an IP. It's just now we're in a different civilization where people understand the IP, they know the characters, they buy the movies. But the Haunted Mansion, that's a haunted house. That's an IP. Frontierland, that's cowboys and Indians. That's an IP. Main Street is America's history. That's an IP. When Walt looked at Disneyland and he made it, the opening day Disneyland was really, from left to right, it's a timeline of America's history. You go from Frontierland to Main Street to Tomorrowland. That is America's history. That's America's nostalgia. He repackaged your patriotism, put it on a platter and served it to you. And he knew that when you walked through that gate, if you loved America, you'd love Disneyland. And that is still happening today. It's just, if you love superheroes, you'll love Marvel Land. If you love space, you'll love Galaxy's Edge. And people get so angry. When are they going to make original attractions again? They've always made attractions based off of IP. They just now own shinier projects that they can match them to. But they always did that, and all of Walt's original movies were themed after IP, fairy tales in the public domain. So they've always done this as a corporation. That's one of the dumbest, most uneducated complaints I hear all the time. They've always done that way. Nothing has changed. It's just now you're realizing it because it's something that you knew as a property before it became an attraction. Whereas when you went there as a kid, you always knew that was Sleeping Beauty's castle. Well, it wasn't Sleeping Beauty's castle in 55. The movie wasn't out yet. It was a property that was going to be materialized in the future. So I think that's a big difference that people don't really stop and think about.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the 70s with Disneyland.
Sure.
You have Country Bears, you have Space Mountain, and you have Big Thunder Mountain. And those three attractions those are great attractions. Wonderful. You say, well, gee, they're really great, and they didn't have to base them off of a movie. And it's like the reason why they weren't based off of a movie is because the studio wasn't putting out movies that were connecting with enough people. They were re-releasing. Because you still had the re-releases of the classics, but they weren't putting out new movies. The Black Hole did not connect with enough people. Because if they had, then you would have seen attractions based on those at the park. So no, they go ahead and they do the Country Bears. They do, Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain. So yeah.
And Country Bears is Americana. It's country music. It's the wilderness. It's going to Big Bear and getting away. It's that promise. It's a place where Grandma likes to go. Space Mountain, space exploration. That's going to take you into another place if you're a sci-fi fan. And then Big Thunder Mountain, mining, the settlers of California. That's more of that frontier mindset. So even though these things aren't tied to a specific movie or book or character, they are tied to an association of, if you're into sci-fi, you'll love Space Mountain. And so you're absolutely right. If they would have had movies that were crushing it, they would have put them in the park. Trust us.
It's all still familiar. I mean, you mentioned all those things, and it's still something familiar to you, regardless if it's a movie.
And that's why we love these adventures, because we get to step into something that is familiar. We get to live it. Space Mountain is an epic, sci-fi adventure that all three of us have been on several times. And that's why Galaxy's Edge follows that same template. We're not going into the Dagobah system. We're not going directly into a scene from Empire or even Force Awakens. We're going into a land that's new but familiar. That's been the template forever.
What do you think is going to happen with Star Tours?
I think it's done. I think it's outdated. It's fun. Every time I ride that ride, I don't like the queue. I don't like the wind up to get in there. I don't like exit through the gift shop, but the actual riding of Star Tours is always so fun. And I get that burst of magic when I'm getting off of it. That being said, I don't see it surviving. I don't see that side of the park surviving. And I also think that anything post-COVID where, you want me to wear glasses that other people have worn today? I'm going to hard pass on that. I just don't see how that technology stays around.
True. Yeah. I know when Galaxy's Edge first opened, everyone was thinking, why didn't they move Star Tours over there? I'm glad they didn't.
No, it wouldn't have worked. And I also love the idea that people think that Disneyland's like Legos, and you can just pick up a big piece of it and just move it across. I mean, no big deal. Just pick it up and move it over there. No, I think that Star Wars really, really served an important part in Disneyland's history. Indiana Jones and Star Tours is that bridge between old Disneyland and new Disneyland. And it has really, really served a crucial moment. It was reinvented, redesigned. But I really feel like if you look at Tomorrowland from above, if you look at Utopia from above, like the future holds such better opportunities than how that land is properly being served.
I feel like we could have you back and do a whole show just on Tomorrowland and what we would like to see out of it, So I don't want to go down that road, but I do like that. I love that conversation.
I would love it too. And I bring up all these other lands because I know we're talking about Galaxy's Edge, but I bring up all these other lands to sort of make people realize that it is very, very familiar, right? Like there is so much of Disney's history rooted through Galaxy's Edge. I mean, the marketplace is very New Orleans Square. The Country Bear entrance, it feels like the Big Thunder path, Big Thunder Mountain Trail. There are so many pieces there that are really, really familiar, to the point where I would say Smuggler's Run is the modern day version of Star Tours. Like it is just an evolution of things. Just so interesting to me why it got trashed so hard, because I'm like, guys, this is everything else that you love about the park. Is it just it didn't meet your expectations, or you thought it would be something different, or is it that it's different? And everything else in Disneyland is perfect because it's settled in, it's collected dust, and that's the way that it always was. One of the hardest things about rebranding your company or updating your look is people are always going to be like, I like the old way better. And I realized once in my life, every time I got a new haircut, people told me I like my old haircut better. And I'm like, man, at this moment, I'm like 30 negative haircuts in a hole. Like, I must be so atrocious right now. And I realized people weren't necessarily saying, I don't like your new haircut. They're just like, something's different about you and it feels off. And I really feel like that's been kind of the negative side of Galaxy's Edge. But, I will agree with people. Not a lot for, young ones to go in there. But I have to argue that Star Wars is a franchise. As a concept, it skews, middle-aged kid up. It's kind of a pre-adult concept. And I just think, you put Mater's Junkyard in there or a teacup spinner ride, and it's like you just broke everything that they worked on.
They're supposed to, I've heard rumors they're going to get like a sit-down restaurant in there someday. I don't know.
Yeah, so that was one of the original pieces that then quietly got taken out as they were looking at time and budget. And if you study the land from above, which I love to do, where the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run like overage of guests goes on the outside of Oga's Cantina, if you look at an aerial, there's a whole big rectangle just sitting there where the restaurant would have gone there. So then, the restaurant, much like 33 and the Bayou, how they share all of their infrastructure, they would be there side by side. So it would have fit back in that corner. And I really do feel like a sit-down restaurant with an entertainment offering, because all of the concept art of that showed a stage with an animatronic band playing, and then human performers that are dressed up accordingly. I do feel like entertainment is what the land is really, really missing. But I also understand, get everybody to buy tickets and go there to see the land. Then have them buy those tickets all over again to ride Rise of the Resistance. Then get them to show up next year, because now there's a theme. Like this year is like the summer of resistance, and there's a battle that goes on 4 times a night. And then we add the fireworks. Like, just keep finding a way to repackage and sell those tickets. So I understand a smart person can look at the land and see it's open source. It's built to last. Like, they built a land that's going to go a solid 50 years. But they're not going to give you all that 50 years in the opening year, because then next year's like, I've already done it. I'm over it, bored.
We didn't touch on Olga's Cantina, did we?
No, I mean, I think Olga's Cantina is great. It's nice to have an exclusive nature to the park. It's hard to get in. When you get in there, it's kind of crowded. It has a very non-Disney type vibe when you get in there. Like, you do kind of feel like you're in a bar. And I think that it's good to sort of give that like club vibe to the regular pass holder, right? Like the exclusivity. You got in there, other people didn't. I really, really like that. I'd love to see more of those type of experiences pour into the park.
Yeah, it's something that I wouldn't do every time I go, but every now and then, yeah.
I remember Thanksgiving. It was California, cold and rainy, and we'd made our turkey, and the wife and I are sitting here, and I'm just like, bet Disneyland's empty tonight. She's like, all right, you show me the crowds, and if it's empty, we're going. Well, I was lucky. It was empty. So we flew down to the park unexpectedly on Thanksgiving night, got a couple of our friends from OC to meet us down there, and we ended up Thanksgiving night hanging out into not too crowded Oga's Cantina. And it was a weird time travel in my life that I remember going back home to Kentucky, and on Thanksgiving you've had enough of your family, so you go out to the neighborhood bar and you hang out with your buds. And I'm like, I can't believe my neighborhood bar on Thanksgiving night is Oga's Cantina.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I had only gone there once so far, but
I just wish that every now and again there was just, sort of a wackadoo bounty hunter, kind of a grimy character that would kind of sit in the back booth and everybody just knew to leave him alone. Like, I don't think that it would break the bank or break the budget, although I think anything would break the budget right now. So let's just ignore Posdemic. But I don't think that it would really break the budget to get some cast members, because it would just be nice to see guys in flight suits just carrying cargo going from building to building. Like, I don't need them to do a magic trick. I just want to see somebody walk across one of those bridges. Like it is so perfect. They just put a little bit of life in it and it will come to life. I can't wait for them to finally make that full commitment to the land.
I think they were heading that way, and then we had our, as you said, our pandemic. But yeah,
something happened.
Yeah, I think they were heading that way. It seemed like. Yeah. Well, Mark, I'm gonna wrap this up for now, but thank you so much for coming on. I wanted you to have a chance to also plug, stuff you have, your wonderful podcast and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do a podcast that was monthly, and now I've converted it over to weekly as the gates of Disneyland are closed. It's called Disneyland For Designers. Mm-hmm. It's available wherever you podcast. And each week I have a co-host, or I go in solo by myself, and we look at one very specific detail of Disneyland, whether it's this past week where me and my regular rotating different co-host, Philander Butler, sat across from me, and I showed up with a list of 10 things to make a perfect land, and he showed up with a list of 10 things to make a perfect land. So we'll do that, or sometimes me and the guy that I started with, Jared Maruyama, we will go through and just look at one attraction, its history, its detailing, its design. And I'm always blown away that when people review my content, they go, "I love how positive your content is." I'm like, why make negative Disneyland content? Disneyland is my escape. It's something I love. And so I will always cover it in the most positive way possible. I'll never hold back punches. I love to make fun of Tomorrowland. Autotopia set it on fire.
Yeah, you got to be honest, right?
Yeah, I got to be honest so you can believe in all my opinions. But I really, really love the park, and I try to approach it from what is the artistry? How does the magic work? And I do YouTube. You can find me over on YouTube as Adventures in Design. And I've started live streaming, which I started looking at people playing Call of Duty, and I said, how do you do that with Disneyland? And so I virtually take people into Disneyland, and we walk through the park, and we listen to the music of the lands, and I take people on bizarro adventures. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but last Friday I got stuck at the top of Sleeping Beauty's castle for 2.5 hours.
I heard
because
about
they deal
that.
with a troll. And troll law, they'll always give you one thing you want, but then punish you on the backside. So I said, troll, all I want to do is be in Disneyland. He said, no problem. And he put me at the top of Sleeping Beauty's castle. So for 2.5 hours, me and my audience had to figure out how I was going to get down from the castle. Newsflash, I jumped, and boy, did it hurt. I died right there on the compass rose in front of me. But, it's like a video game, so you get a new life tomorrow.
Here's a topic that'll take some research that might be good for that. When was the last bit of chain link fence in the guest areas removed from Disneyland?
What a deep dive!
Because you go back and look at the old pictures, and there's a lot of chain link fence.
Yeah.
In the park. But now all the fencing and walls in the park are very, very specific. They're even the entry, even there at Mickey Floral. It wasn't that long ago they changed the wall there to a brick. It wasn't brick before, and then they changed it to brick because it looks better. But there used to be chain link fencing in guest areas in Disneyland, and I'm just curious as to when the last bit left.
You know what? I'm insane enough to try to research that. I've been trying to do this series over on YouTube where it's called attraction bios, right? Like, make your way through all the attractions and give the bio of that attraction. But what I love about Disneyland is, like, you think you're just going to talk about Casey Jr., which was the first one I did. But then you start to realize, well, Casey's had so many different neighbors over the last 65 years. So the story always gets larger. So I thought, what's the most obscure attraction that I could do for episode number 2? And I thought, the shooting gallery, the shooting exposition, right? Like, that's so bizarre that you can shoot a gun inside of Disneyland. Like, it doesn't have many years left on it, as that's feeling antiquated for where society's at. And as I pulled on that thread, that's not the first shooting gallery. It's just the last one. There was one on Main Street. There was one at Adventureland. There was shooting in Narland Square. There was shooting in the Davy Crockett Museum. Like, there's a whole history of shooting at Disneyland. And I'm not even going to talk about that there used to be a gun store there because I'm going to use that for a whole other video for my Disneyland Oddity series. So you bring up a good point. If there's anybody dumb enough to figure out where that last piece of fence went, it's this guy. I will gladly accept your challenge.
I can't wait to hear it.
The story of the Disneyland fence.
It sounds ridiculous, but it really sounds interesting too. Yeah.
It's a fascinating place. Like literally everything about it is fascinating. Do you mind if I ask you guys a couple of quick questions? So you guys were both janitors in the park.
Yes.
And so what I romanticize about being a janitor is you're the most accessible, the easiest person to find. And the reason why I dream of having your job for my retirement job is because all I really want to do is give people directions. I just want to tell people how to get to that next thing. So am I right that you guys are constantly getting asked, hey man, how do I get to Matterhorn? Well, it's the mountain right over there, bud.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Where's the restroom? Right over there. Is that the nearest one? Why would I tell you a further restroom? It's more difficult for me to tell you where the further restroom is than, Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love I hear people ask for directions. I don't want to bother people, but I just love navigating the park. I would enjoy that so much, telling people how to get to where they're going, the efficient way to get there.
Yeah, people would ask for maps, and then of course your question is, well, can I help you find something? Because they want a map. So
right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I would get fired after day one because you can't walk everybody to where they want you to go. But I wanted to make sure they got there.
Sometimes I did do that if it was within where I was working. But yeah.
I say, janitor, not my ideal position, but at Disneyland, it just sounds like such a fun way to be a part of it. And, you guys are a part of a long history of keeping it immaculate. Because one of the number one things people will always say about Disneyland is how clean it is. So you guys are part of that ancestry of, keeping it clean. And I love when you see management or anybody, that normally would just not go out of their way to pick something up. I love seeing everybody that works there pick trash up off the ground. I love that so much. Nobody's better than what Walt used to do. Is if you saw on the ground, pick it up and put it in a can. And I love that.
Well, cool. Well, Mark, thank you so much again for coming on. I just love the way that you describe things and just your outlook on Disneyland. It's so positive, and it's really inspired me.
I appreciate that, but I appreciate you guys having me on the show. I loved Mice Chat, and I would always see you guys over there and dip into episodes when I could. And it's just when I learned, first I learned that I love the park. Then I learned there was a history, and then I learned there was a whole supportive fan network of content that you could create. And I think the first thing that really made me fall in love with the park was Dateline Disney, those articles. And I worked so late that sometimes I would catch them Sunday night when they were posted for Monday morning. And so that just became part of my rituals, just every morning going over to Mice Chat. And then I saw the little garbage can. I was like, wait a minute. Janitors doing a podcast, my dream job in audio format. How can I resist?
Cool. Well, we'll definitely have you back on, Mark. If you'd like to, you're welcome anytime.
Did you hear that, guys? I passed the audition. I'm in. I'm the third. I made it. All right. So when I apply for the janitor position, I'll put you guys down on my resume or my application.
They'll probably take out a gun right there and shoot you.
Well, hey, if they do that, I'll have to say, do you guys know the history of shooting at Disneyland? Because there used to be one on Main Street, one over in Frontierland, one over in Adventure.
Okay, well, that concludes episode 292 of the Sweep Spot Podcast. Wow.
Yeah, that was great. That's, that was a lot of fun.
It really was. I'm so glad. Thank you to Mark for coming on. I really love talking with him, and I have to meet him someday when the park's finally open.
I will meet him when he figures that thing out about the chain link fencing.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be great. Well, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Check out all our our website, everything. We have our show notes over there, our T-shirts, our books. You can still get our books on our website. Both books. We have a deal where you can get both and shipping all included for $35. So
what a deal! What a deal!
Both books and shipping, $35. So
And you can find the podcast on Laughing Place and so many other places. So let people know where they can find us so they can listen to all this merriment.
Yeah, leave a review on your preferred method of listening to us. That'd be great too. We really appreciate that. So, well, let's wrap this up. But thank you again for listening. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.